Welcome to the 12th episode of Empower Your Magical Self. I'm your host, Leah, aka the Mystic Autistic. Thank you so much for joining me here. This will be our last episode with a guest. Next week, I'll be doing a wrap up. It's our 13th and last episode of the season. So we'll be looking back at the 12 marvelous guests we had and some of the highlights of those shows. But today is our very last guested episode of the season, and you're in for a treat. As always, my guests are always kind of extraordinary, if you ask me. Today's guest is Dr. Maura Moynihan. She is a healer. She's a breathwork facilitator. She's a coach. She's a wondrous, inspirational person. And we have an excellent talk about all sorts of things, including German New Medicine, which I had never heard of before. So if you are interested in learning about what that is, stay tuned and you'll find out lots of other cool things. It's a really fun interview and it's, dare I say, uplifting. I think it's kind of magical, even. So please hang on for this 12th episode. It's our penultimate episode in my first season. Oh, I'll be back, but I need to take a break. Other things have kind of slid to the background as I have been focusing on empowering your magical self, the podcast, because, there's a book, there's all kinds of stuff in the works. So this is just one tentacle of the octopus that is empower your magical self. Please stay tuned and enjoy my wonderful guest, Dr. Maura Moynihan. I think you're going to like her. I like her a lot. We had a really wonderful chat, and I'm so happy that it was recorded so that you can enjoy it too. All right. Hold tight. Here's the interview. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on my show, even though you don't know me or have any experience with me or anything. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. You were so delightful in your message. It was a clear yes.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciated your Instagram presence. That's how I found you.
Yeah. Instagram is, I love Instagram. I think like social media can be like the greatest thing ever when we curate our feed. So I appreciate that we've connected.
I love to hear you say that because I know that social media deservedly often gets a really bad rap. I understand that it can be very, very problematic. However, like you said, I've met virtually all of the people who I've had on my show through social media. I've learned so many things that have been so incredibly helpful for my healing through social media that I don't know if I would have had the opportunity to encounter otherwise. So I don't want to be in a position to stand up for social media, but I do sometimes feel that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tool. It's like how we use the tool. We can use it with wide open hearts and full consciousness, or we can use it to, numb ourselves or spew negativity. It really is the consciousness from which we reside in and how we use it.
And isn't that kind of metaphorical for so much in life, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Could be true of a hammer.
Exactly. Totally. And so it just becomes short-sighted to demonize anything. It's like, well, it can bring a lot of beauty and connection and wisdom, and just depends on how we use it.
It's like people don't pick up on, well, you're seeing what you're looking for.
I mean, I could rip off this. It's like we're powerful creators. We are powerful creators. And like social media is just a fractaled reflection of life itself. Like what we see outside of ourselves is really what's happening inside of ourselves, and how we relate to it and respond to it is our personal power. So it's like we will be confronted by things that we don't necessarily like, and we have the ability to shift it.
And that's a wonderful starting place for me to ask you and to tell you that for 45 probably years, I was in that dark place. And everything I saw, I didn't feel like I was looking for negativity, which I'm sure a lot of people would respond to what you just said that way. I'm not looking for negativity. But it becomes so ingrained in our brains. And I know that you know a lot about that. So can you maybe talk about that with the thought in mind that maybe somebody's hearing this who may be a little bit skeptical and saying, these women are smoking something. The world is full of shit, especially right now, right? So please talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Leah, did you, are you from New York? Did I see that correctly?
No, I'm from Texas originally and then California after that. Yeah. And I'm in Colorado now. So.
And you're in Colorado. I do not know where I saw New York, but I am originally from New York.
I've been there once.
But, yeah. But my background is, you know, my family of origin is like blue collar, like New Yorkers, Catholicism, like right and wrong, you do the right thing. And so we're born into these families and we're born into these cultures with certain narratives that is generally speaking just how we witness the world. And so it's just innocent. It's such innocence that we have these filters. And so I really believe that if we're creating unintentionally a reality that we really do see a lot of negativity, the response inside of ourselves is usually suffering of some sort. And the suffering is kindness to wake us up, to really have us look around and be like, what else is here? If I live in a kind and loving universe, if I believe that the source of this universe is benevolent, and I am continually experiencing such negativity, like it gives us pause to just consider, perhaps there's another way. Show me another way. And in my experience, it really is cultivating and practicing and wiring the mindset and the filter from which we look from. And so as we continuously are like, well, if life loves me, like, how else might I see this situation? If life loves me, if life has my back, what else is my opportunity here? And it brings more consciousness into these unconscious patterns.
And so in your opinion, do you feel like that life has my back, life is good, does that have to be the starting point, that faith? Or what if you can't seem to muster that?
Yeah, I think, you know, I think that every single person has their own opening.
Okay.
And so whatever it is for a unique individual that like catches their attention outside of the habitual narrative from which we just see things, that's more than enough. For me, in my conditioning and my upbringing, that really is such a helpful tool for me. I'm like, okay, I am suffering right now. What if what I'm looking at is actually not a problem? What if this is completely unfolding for the highest good? What if this is actually supporting me to see something or learn something that is completely aligned with my heart's desire? And like that does it for me, to look outside of the limited narrative that my my default setting has me go to.
Yeah. And that I have learned to do that, fortunately, because I would not be here otherwise. I guarantee you. COVID was a turning point for me. It was for so many people in so many different ways. It saved my life, which feels so strange to say. And it took me a long time to be able to say that without feeling tremendous guilt for, you know, kind of celebrating something that wreaked such havoc. And I just remember prior to COVID being in such a dark space for so long that any little glimmer like these things that you're saying, I don't know that I could have believed it. And the agony for me was thinking, if I can make this little opening of light, I will have to strain with all my might to keep that little opening going forever. I'll have to white knuckle it through life. And so I want to, from my vantage point, to let people know that it does become a habit. it does become, like you were talking about, wired in your brain to look that way. So although it is very hard at first, if you're in a very dark spot, to turn that corner, it will get easier.
What was it about your COVID experience that shifted things for you?
You know, that's something I'm still kind of trying to wrap my mind around. Part of me just flat out believes that my spirit guides were like, no, you have to survive. You cannot take yourself out again. You have taken yourself out of this play so many lifetimes before. So no, somehow it was just a looking around and seeing all of these people losing their lives and me being so close to the edge of just giving mine up. It was just some kind of a weird brain thing that I would never have predicted could have happened to me. And it's my personal miracle. And I think that you would agree that we all have opportunities like that, and that they might come in the weirdest packages, like COVID.
I mean, I would categorize that in my mind as just grace.
Right. So talk about grace. What is grace? What is that?
Well, again, I have a lot of conditioning from my upbringing in the church. And as I've learned and grown and taken the things that really resonate, my experience of grace is the natural order of things. And we have access to it when we are settled and present with life. Like, I really do believe that things are always unfolding for us. And sometimes it's really hard and painful, but it doesn't mean that it's not also a benevolent force. I like how you were talking about your spirit guides. And I really relate to that. I had my brother-in-law passed away in 2021. After a very short illness with cancer. And he is like such a presence in our day-to-day life. And it's like the ordinariness of miracles. Like, of course, he shows up when things are hard, like, of course. And so, but the way that we can actually experience that grace is when we're not in our intellect, but when we're in our present self and just wide open to life expressing that way.
And I understand what you are saying, but I can imagine somebody saying, how can I not be in my intellect? What does that even mean? I mean, I'm looking at you. So try to explain that a little bit.
Yeah. You know, I think, and I could be butchering this, but I believe it was Einstein that really referred to us using our brains to think and not having our brains like run our life. He definitely said it way more eloquently. But, you know, my background is in body work and chiropractic and craniosacral and acupuncture. And so that often is my touchstone.
I see.
You really recognize that the body holds far more wisdom than our rational thinking.
And that has been something that has come on me hard in the last 3 years since my awakening. I was so disconnected from my body. I hated my body. I thought of my body as a cage that I was trapped in, that the sooner I could get out of this cage, the better it would be. So obviously I did not respect and care for my body because, I mean, you're not going to love and respect something you hate, you know? And it was such a powerful transformation to come to a point where I'm okay with being embodied. And it's such, you know, like I talk about my spirit guides, and I feel like part of the reason I had that long experience of being so disembodied was that so I can really check into that, and I can feel what people are feeling when they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about, be in my body. That does not even make sense to me. So I can still have a foot in that reality of being like, and not even knowing, I don't know how to tell people, drop down. I don't know. What do you say to somebody literally when they're like, I want to do this. I want to get down into my body. What do you do? It's taken me like months and I can't even articulate it. It's taken me years, but yeah, so please.
Well, so my husband and I actually one of our businesses is to teach people how to facilitate revelation breathwork. And
Perfect.
for me, that has been such a fast and effective way to move out of the confines of the intellect into the expanse of the body. It becomes almost like a self-hypnotism following the breath. And when we drop into the body, more often than not, we'll have a memory that'll come up, or we'll have an insight come through, or an answer to an inquiry that we've been holding onto. And it's because we finally have settled into the present moment. Because, you know, our mind is always trying to figure things out. It's always trying to think about the future or the past, or it's not necessarily present.
Mm-hmm.
And when we have certain practices, I mean, there's so many wonderfully effective guided meditative practices, body work. But when we find something that really resonates with us to help us just land exactly where we are, it's a game changer for sure.
Yeah.
I appreciate how you shared your experience of, again, it's such an innocent misidentification of like not wanting to be in our body or hating our body. And it really derives just from, I have a lot of thoughts on this, but I think it really has a lot to do with, toxic patriarchy. Whereas like when we are modeled and supported to being in the wisdom and the miracle of our form, it's like we don't look at it in an aesthetic way or a functional way even. It's like really a reverent way of, this is a vessel that I get to reside in, to do the work that I'm here to do, to have the experiences that I'm here to have, to share the loving that's available for me to share. But I could totally go off on a tangent with that. But yes.
Please feel free to go on tangents. I'm all for the tangents. I'm a tangent lover.
You're a tangent lover? Well, okay. I've been a student of A Course in Miracles for many years, and I really appreciate that teaching. And the way that it speaks about the body, it feels like it's the first level where it really teaches us that we're not the body. Mm-hmm. That we are, we're not our thinking, we're not our feeling, we're not our body, we're this infinite soul having a human experience. And I think that level of teaching is very, very helpful, especially in today's society where we are so identified as the body. We're so identified of like symptoms or diseases or, any type of pain that we have in the body or how it looks. And to have that, consideration, like, oh, I am not a body, like I am a soul, is so helpful. And then from that place, taking reverence for the body, where it's like we have been molded and modeled to have at least 5 senses, to receive information, to be present, to execute these functions, is more of the modeling of like the Gnostic Gospels and especially the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. So, it's just a divine feminine type of consideration. It's like, of course, we're not the body, but we're in the body. Everything is God. This too is God. And how can I celebrate it and be in it while I'm here?
And I think what you said about the patriarchy too really strikes at the heart of my own personal experience. I developed really early. I got my period at 9. I had big breasts, and I was shamed daily in my own home. My father shamed me. Kids, I was in a small town. All of a sudden, I was a slut, and I was like, I don't even really know what that means, and I think that is such. I don't want to say the norm, but it's not out of the norm for women, at least in the West. That's all I can really talk with authority about. And then we've got this weird thing of like all of these images of you've got to be sexy, you've got to have the big boobs, you've got to be this and that, but then you're going to be shamed if you do. And so it is such that the culture seems to be just digging at young people. And of course, from my experience, I'm going to say young girls, especially. And I just found it so impossible. It wasn't impossible, but I found it impossible to feel at home in my body and on the earth. I also have hyperhidrosis, which you probably know means I sweat constantly. And so my nervous system was constantly dysregulated. I was sweating all the time. I was being made fun of. And it's like, when I look back and I'm like, how could I have ever been in peace? It would have been miraculous if I had not had to go through all of those years to get to this place.
Yeah.
And so I say all that for anyone who might be listening, who holds dear their own personal problems that keeps them from being the person they could be. Because I did that. My ego was like, my shit is so bad and so deep that I'm the only one who can't be happy. Look at me. And so I had to let go of all of that shit. And that's hard, because even though that shit holds you down, it's what you know.
Yeah, I really, really appreciate that. And was this a part of what happened in 2020 for you?
Yeah, everything turned on a dime there.
Wow.
Yeah, it had been pretty much just counting the days till I end this whole mess of a situation to, fuck, I got to figure out how to be happy for the first time in my life, you know?
Wow. Wow, that's really profound.
That's why I'm doing this, to get people who are in that place in touch with people like you, to see someone like me who's in the midst of this happening, and to just see you don't have to be the only person in the world who can't be happy. Just let go of that story.
You know, I wonder if this is relatable or not, but what you're sharing is really, really profound. And I really acknowledge your courage to stay with yourself and just consider other ways. And it's like, when I hear your story, I think about, I think about a couple of things, but it's just like the pain and feeling alone and separate, and feeling like we're the only ones who are experiencing this. And then, and how oftentimes that narrative is like, well, how am I ever going to get ahead? And just like this whole narrative based on we're losing.
Yep.
We're losing in our future fantasy. Like, we've already lost.
Yep.
And so it's just so significant to me that your experience of like, it really seems to me that you were experiencing the pain of those thoughts.
It's true.
And so I think that like that really highlights to me the difference of like being embodied, where it's like those thoughts are not running. Nothing has actually changed in my external circumstances.
Right.
But I'm not like respecting my thinking. I'm not like engaged in my thinking. I'm just in the here and now.
Right.
And wow, what a different experience that is.
Yeah, it's been really miraculous. And I can say definitively now why I'm here. And I'm here for a reason. And I know what the reason is. And thank you, past broken child woman, for not taking myself out of the game, because I have a reason.
I would love to hear it.
Well, it's what I'm doing, to help people who are in that place, because I know there are millions of people in that place, and that breaks my heart because they don't have to be.
Yeah.
And they think they have to be.
Yeah.
And it's one of those cases where the person has to make that decision or have that moment in themselves.
Yes.
Because I want to go to every person in that and say, boop, you're out of that. You're good now, but I can't do it.
Yeah.
And so I want to offer anything I can, any kind of rope, anything to get people awake and on the living track,
What a beautiful legacy that you're creating.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. And you have too, my gosh, with your practice and your 4 gorgeous boys and your family and your golden doodle. I've been all over. That's what I do. I'm a researcher. I don't want to just have anybody on the show. I want to have people I respect what they're doing. So yeah, I love all of your output, and your sense of humor too is so fun.
I appreciate that.
That was another thing. When I was in such a bad place, I thought, well, if I do ever get happy and spiritual, I'll have to just not be funny anymore.
Oh, right. Absolutely not. You know what I love? Are you familiar with David Hawkins' work, like Power versus Force?
No.
So he is such a fantastic teacher. He's passed now, but he wrote several books. Power versus Force is a really fantastic one, and Letting Go is a really fantastic one. And he created the the scale of consciousness.
I was just gonna. I think you might have posted that.
Yes.
But I saw that. Yeah,
such a big fan.
Yeah, tell me about it.
So essentially, it's like really rating or putting a numerical value on these certain experiences that we have, these certain emotions that we're experiencing. And I think the value in understanding it is the impetus to be like, okay, well, I'm feeling ashamed, but if I feel anger, that's actually preferred because there's more fuel underneath that emotion to get me to do something, to get me out of this lower experience. And as humans, we're designed to have the full experience. We're designed to have all of it. Like, we're not robots. We don't flip a switch. We don't like not always feeling good. But when we can recognize that every single part is there to teach us something and support something, it's easier to hold. Anyway, David Hawkins.
Stephen, no, David. Yeah.
In his hierarchy of experiences, enlightenment is like 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
But right under enlightenment is peace, and then it's joy, and then it's loving. Mm-hmm. So for us to prioritize experiencing and expressing joy is one of like the highest vibrations that we can offer. And it holds loving, it holds the whole spectrum. So yes, I think that spirituality and humor they go hand in hand. So I love that you brought that in.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I've gotten in the last couple of years really into some people call it slaptual music. So it's like rap, high vibe. That's my jam. I'm just all over it. Toni Jones, she was my first guest on the show. She's incredible. Peachka is another one. I'm so big on keeping yourself surrounded by things that are high vibe, if you want to turn it that way. Whatever floats your boat, right? What keeps you up and in a good mood, because we so often, I think I certainly was guilty of this. I go through life eating icky food, watching news showing me terrible things happening, listening to music that is, oh, I'm so sad, everything's so bad. And then I would wonder, well, why can't I be happy? Well, I was filling my voice with sadness and then wondering, why am I not getting anything different than sadness out? And I can see that in retrospect. And so now, I diet's clean, I sleep the right hours, I listen to great music, I get exercise, but I do all of this self-motivated, not because I want to please somebody and they'll be like, oh, good, she's checking the boxes, she's exercising. And it's such a mental switch that it's very difficult to describe to somebody who hasn't had that switch, because I would have said, what do you mean a switch? I'm trying to turn the switch. I don't see a switch. Show me the switch,
I love that. You just broke that down in such a simple way. Yeah.
Well, I try to live by a soul lit instead of a diet. I only do things that light my soul on fire. If it's not going to light my soul on fire, if it's going to put out my soul fire down the road, I'm going to stay away from it.
Are you familiar with German New Medicine?
What kind of medicine?
Yeah. Terrible name. German New Medicine. It's it's fringy alternative in the perspective, but it essentially really speaks to what you're saying. Where and I'm gonna like really do the cliff notes here.
Yeah.
But essentially, like, our body responds to our joy more than gluten. Okay. Our body responds to our like experience of being settled and in communion with others, more so than just anything of like a molecular level. It really like speaks to well, what you were sharing reminds me of that, where it's like our vibration, our conscious cultivation of our enjoyment of our life trumps any like smaller detail of exposure to things. And it's like such an empowering and simple way to live, where it's like, I'm just going to enjoy this ice cream because I am alive and this is wonderful.
Right. And by the same token, if I know that ice cream with fudge and nuts is going to make me feel uncomfortable, I'm going to forego that, and I'm not going to be sad and feel like I'm depriving myself. It's just, I just know what's going to make me feel good. You know? Could you did you say German new medicine?
Yes, it's called German new medicine. It was, you know, the man that came up with this was a German oncologist.
Okay.
And yeah, it's very I appreciate that wisdom for sure.
I've never heard that before, so I'll have to look it up. I thought surely she's not saying German new wisdom, new medicine.
No, yeah, indeed I am.
Okay, I got it then. Cool, yes. Cool. There are so many different. One of my big things is one size never fits all. That's a lie. That's the biggest lie. It's just not true in any sense. Nothing that is one size is going to fit everybody. And I found that talk therapy did not really do it for me. And so that's something that I try to help people who may listen to the show understand. I've had people tell me I've been to 20 different therapists and none of them work. It won't work for me. Well, they're all talk therapists though. And that is set in so many people's mind that is what therapy is. So maybe you could help me enlighten people as to different ways that they can try to do therapy that is not talk therapy.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I too have found that oftentimes when we're just rehashing our story, it can be really depressing.
Yeah.
And sometimes for people, it's like there's no momentum to get out of it. They can find themselves getting really stuck in their story. And meanwhile, like the reason why they're investing in a therapist is to improve the quality of their life. And this is where embodiment work with talking about what we want to create is so helpful and really can get us into action, really get us into like identifying with who we truly are rather than identifying with our wounding or our past experience, where it's like in the here and now, in my beating heart, what's calling me and how can I align with that? And how can I really call myself forward into the person, into the consciousness that can usher in my heart's desire.
Yeah.
So it really is about like the evolution of our experience, not necessarily always just the rehashing. And so, you know, that's where I think coaching comes in, because that is more forward focused. And there's such amazing tools out now like EMDR and again, breath work and tapping can be even really
love it. Yeah.
Acupuncture, but all of those really incorporate being in our body.
So if someone were to be looking for a therapist and they think, oh, I might like to try something like this, maybe look for somatic type healing, what kind of keywords would they use to look for something?
I think somatic, being educated in the somatics is just so very supremely helpful. Having an understanding of the nervous system is so supremely helpful, because what it does is it takes the personalization out of a lot of our conditioning and a lot of our like unconscious strategies, where it's like, oh, you're just in fight or flight. That's a very appropriate response to being in fight or flight. How can we be in the body, recognize that we're completely safe in this situation, and then regulate ourselves so that we can see what the next appropriate action is. So yeah, I think that you nailed it. I think that looking for somatic support is really helps take people to the next level.
That has been what has worked for me. I knew my guide said, you got to get some therapy. And I said, I've done that. And they said, you haven't done it the way that's going to work for you. And so I made it my mission to find a somatic therapist, and we do EMDR together.
Nice.
He's very like, okay, you sound like you're stuck in your second chakra right now. I mean, this is stuff I never would have gotten in talk therapy that I had done.
Nice.
That I did not find helpful. So I just want to, people to know there is something out there that can help you. Maybe you haven't even heard of it yet.
Absolutely. I love that.
But I promise you, there is something. Because I would have thought, there's nothing that can help me. Nope, get away from me. There's nothing that can help me. I'm going to tell you right now, I can't shout that woman down. And I'm not going to try to shout anybody down now, but please believe me that there is something that can help. EMDR has done so much for me. Tapping has done so much for me. These are things I didn't even know about 3 years ago. So hold on,
Yeah. And the great thing too is that there are so many tools that one can experience outside of a one-on-one, because sometimes therapy is an investment, but there's classes, there's online things, there's even YouTube videos. Like there's a lot of accessibility for these types of modalities as well.
Absolutely. So somatics, I would say, would be the key word that someone could type in if they were to want to get into this. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, good. Yeah. Understanding the polyvagal theory and then my nervous system was such a game changer for me. I had never heard the term rest and digest. I was just like fight or flight my entire friggin' life, and you can stop that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also what you're saying is it really offers a level of compassion for ourselves. It really opens up to being like, wow, I didn't even realize that I was operating from like life is a threat.
Yes.
Wow. So then it also begets us to be like, look at how much I actually accomplished from being in fear. What is available for me to really recognize in the here and now? I'm completely safe. Like what do I have access to from this platform now?
Right. It can really be a game changer. And it was like going through my life and not realizing till I was almost 50 that I had a broken leg my entire life, and nobody realized it. And everybody was like, well, why can't she walk? What's wrong with her?
Yeah.
I didn't know I had a broken leg, but once I did, I could start to fix it. And that's available to everybody.
It and totally also is. What you're pointing towards as well is so much of the narrative is like, you're doing it wrong.
Yes.
You should be different. It should be X, Y, and Z. And then with this context and understanding, it's like, oh, this is not about right or wrong. This is about just like the intelligence of our system, keeping us alive. Thank you. And now the conversation that I want to have is not about survival. It's about thriving.
Yes, absolutely. And I didn't think I would ever be in that space. And I just feel so fortunate. Wow. And I want everybody to know that they can be in that space, no matter what the situation is, as I would read, books like Holocaust survivors, Elie Wiesel telling these, life is good. And I'm thinking, how, and then I would feel bad about myself. I'm this privileged white woman living in America, and I can't muster up the happiness of a Holocaust survivor. And so I would shame myself about that,
So are there certain things that you do now, certain practices that support you in maintaining this level of consciousness?
Absolutely. Every single morning, I have a really strict routine that I do every day. I've done for 550 days in a row now.
Wow.
I get up. Well, obviously, I go to the bathroom because when people would say they do things first thing in the morning in the old days, I'd be like, well, I can't do that. I got to pee first. No, pee. Do what you got to do, and then do this. That's what we're saying.
That's cute.
I meditate. I do a guided meditation with an insight timer. And then I do a little tapping routine that I have the script for and everything. And then I do a little prayer, a directional prayer. And then I shake. I shake, 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 shake. And then I am ready to go for my breakfast and everything. And I totally cut out coffee.
Wow.
From my diet. That has been huge because my nervous system was so dysregulated.
Yeah.
I did that thing that so many people get into the habit of doing. I would drink coffee all day, then I'd switch to wine. Then I'd go to sleep kind of drunk. I'd get up a little hangover. I'd start it again. Oh my God, that was so taxing on me. And it was the only way I knew to survive.
Right.
So now I do like mud water, mushroom coffee. Nice. I do turmeric tea all day. I never have eaten meat, so still don't eat meat. And I always make sure I have at least 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. And I keep everything on my little timer on my phone. So I can see, had my vegetables, make sure I do 2 sets of 20 minutes of motion, some kind of somatic movement, either dancing or go take my dog for a walk, something. So it's a pretty strict regimen that I have to keep myself to, but I don't get on myself if I miss a couple of things. And, I'm not doing it because I feel like somebody's making me do it. I'm doing it because I know that's what keeps me happy.
Well, I also hear that this is a way that you're respecting yourself and honoring yourself, whereas you were sharing that you just felt like you were trapped and didn't. So what a profound turnaround to actively be kind and loving to yourself and recognize how you thrive. Yes. What feels the best and giving that to yourself.
And my therapist has really helped me understand how much I can reparent my little wounded Leah. And so a lot of that is like, you get your oranges eaten, and just
sweet.
Being sweet. Mm. Yeah. Being sweet to myself. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. It's a life changer. And I don't ever want anyone to underestimate that. That you can fall in love with yourself.
Yeah.
Even if you hate yourself more than you've ever could conceive of hating anyone, you can turn that around and fall madly in love with yourself. I did it.
Mm.
And it changed everything, Yeah. Yeah.
In our breathwork training, we often talk about soul curriculum. Mm-hmm. And how we choose our parents, we choose our incarnation, we choose our body, we choose our ethnicity, we choose it all for the purpose that we incarnated to share. So whatever that is for the unique individual. And as you're, really sharing from your heart, like the level of commitment that you have to let people know that they're not alone.
Yeah.
And they don't have to suffer. I'm really drawn to what you shared about your life's journey and how much you suffered and how you used all of it to get to where you are. And that's such an example of alchemy. That's such an example of using everything to
absolutely
be a conduit of more loving and evolution. So I really acknowledge you. It's very heartfelt as you're sharing your commitment to supporting others and being a beacon.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Mm-hmm. I really do. You were asking about my routines. I also, Sonia Choquette, the author? Yeah, of course. Yeah. She, in one of her books, she wrote about writing to her spirit guides every day. And so I was like, okay, I can do that. And that's where I really got in touch with my spirit guides.
Wow.
For anybody who's thinking, well, I don't know about spirit guides. How do I do that? I just started writing to them and they started writing back because they tell me in my head and I write it down and then I'm seeing like, oh yeah, I forgot I need to do that today. And it's just like, and people could say, oh, well, that's just in your head. I don't care.
Right.
I don't care.
Right. No, truly.
Yeah.
What an example of we create our reality.
Right. Exactly.
And it's like, so we get to choose what we fill ourselves with. And if it's with spirit guides and angels and loving presences, winning. Like, what's wrong with that? Because if we're left to how society wants us to have our inner dialogue, it's doom and gloom and othering and torture and pain. And that creates the lens of which we're seeing our reality.
It sure does.
I love what you're pointing towards.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. I love to get your seal of approval from someone who's been on the path longer than I have. I do. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I want to ask you, what is magic?
What is magic?
What is magic?
That's great. Great question. You know, I feel like magic is being willing to reside in the mystery. It kind of just goes back to what we've been talking about. Like, we're so conditioned to look at everything through the lens of our intellect and like understand things. Like, well, I need to understand it in order to buy in, or it needs to make sense to me in order for me to believe it. And magic is just willing to behold in, like, the origin of everything is the mystery. It is incomprehensible. And that is completely magic, and it's very ordinary. Like, we all come from the mystery and magic, and it's like being able to look through eyes of wonder and curiosity is completely magic.
Yeah.
We moved to the Blue Ridge Mountains about 2 years ago from LA.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I lived in LA. That's a big change.
Where'd you live in LA?
Koreatown.
Nice. We were on the west side, and it was getting really clear that we needed to leave. And anyway, so being here, like, the ordinariness of the seasons is completely magical. I'm like, look at how blossoms come off of these sticks out of nowhere. Like, look at how pollen is sprayed everywhere and life is just regenerative. And it really is ordinary. Yeah. But we get to participate in it when we're present and curious.
I agree. I think that magic is so mundane in so many ways, and that people get hung up on this Disneyfication of magic, and they think it's got to be this thing that's outside of their life that is not real. But it is real. It's like the most real thing. And it's one of those great paradoxes.
Well, I mean, also just listening to you share, it's like how you've reinvented your experience.
Yeah.
How magnificent. How you have intentionally utilized the grace coming through, and how your filter has shifted, and how you are now just a lighthouse for others. Like, that is magical.
I happen to agree with you on that. Thank you very much. I haven't even mentioned that I'm autistic and went through life being undiagnosed until just a few years ago. And, that's another thing. I love being autistic. Now that I know what it is, and, I used to feel like, why can't my mind doesn't work like other people. What's wrong with me? And now I feel like my mind doesn't work like other people.
Beautiful.
And I wish that I hadn't needed that permission, but I did.
Yeah.
And I got it. Nice. And maybe next time around I won't need it, but so I guess just to say, there might be secrets and mysteries in your body and your mind that you haven't figured out that are keeping things a certain way. And maybe that's another mystery for you to unravel to get to your happy place. Beautiful. Everybody's path is different. Every single person's path is different. And what works for Maura, what works for me may not work for you, but something will work for you. And it's your job to find it.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. and
Well, this has been such a great talk. I really appreciate you taking time to talk with me.
yeah,
It's always very uplifting to have these talks. So love it. Thank you very much.
Such an honor, and just really celebrating the work that you're putting out to the world.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. So much, Dr. Maura. I just love your presence, and I appreciate you on Instagram, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. Just all appreciation. Thank you.
Oh, it's such a joy. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Yay. I'll see you on Instagram.
I'll see you on Instagram.
Okay. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye. Wow. I was so impressed by Maura, by the conversation we had. She seems so genuine and warm and real. And I just felt really uplifted and, well, I felt really seen by my guests. I usually feel really seen by my guests because I have really good taste in guests. What can I say? So we're going to be back next week with a wrap-up episode, a look back at the 12 episodes of Empower Your Magical Self, and a look forward at what to look to next season. I'll be back in March. I'm going to take a bit off. I'm going to take the winter off and pursue some other projects. But I'll see you next week before then. And tell me in the meantime, how are you empowering your magical self? What's happening in your life that's magical? I'm going to be signing up for Reiki, Reiki 1. I'm going to become a Reiki practitioner. If you remember a few weeks back, I talked to Susan Kiyoki. She's the founder of Reiki Colorado Academy, and I'm going to be her student in January. Really looking forward to that. If you would like to support my Reiki efforts, you could buy my ebook. That'd be a cool thing to do. It's $10. Just donate $10 to me via Venmo. Send me the email in that Venmo comment of where you'd like me to send your PDF e-booklet on finishing the year in peace and starting next year strong. It's got lots of free links to stuff that I have created that is otherwise behind a paywall. I know all of that stuff has been tremendously helpful to me. I believe it will be helpful to you. And I would love to make this energy exchange with you in support of my Reiki training. But regardless, I'm glad that you're here and empowering your magical self along with me. I really would like to know how you're empowering your magical self. You reading anything good? Broken any bad habits? Started any good habits? Tell me about it. Write to me at my website, leahwellborn.net. There's always lots of good stuff going on there. Never a bad day at leahwellborn.net. I mean, since it's just a website, it doesn't really have good or bad days. Thank you very much for joining me and empowering your magical self. And I will see you next week for the last episode of season 1 of Empower Your Magical Self. Until then, get out there, grab that power, grab the magic, and be your magical self because no one else is going to do it for you. Okay. I love you. Bye.